the finishing of my book on Western automobilism, I read, well, I can say hundreds of novels, at least 200 novels well, all in translation, I would say, Chinese, but also Indonesian, Latin American, African, and my problem is that in nearly no novel I could find this adventure machine idea that we discovered for the early European and American history. There's not this adventure there, and to be honest, I've tried to explain it, but I'm not really sure that I could, and that's why I think that at the end of the 20th century, in the non-West, a new automobilism evolved, which was especially focused on status, on possession, and on another type of travel experience, which was very collective. I mean, focused on the family. And I'm talking about China. There's a nice dissertation of a Chinese social scientist who analyzed dealership, customers in China who came to a dealership, and the first thing they asked, that was not about the power of the engine and the top speed or something which you would expect in the West, but if there is enough space in the back of the car.
That's exactly the Indian experience as well.
Because in the weekends they want to drive their parents around, huh?
Right.
Or their friends.
But to do research into these interesting subjects, what is the car? What is the difference between an adventure car and a family car and an expedition car, for example? You have to read very closely the different tracts of culture. So you have to do a lot of cultural history apart from and complementary to car history. To fit the car into different patterns of cultural, political, social history, you have to do a lot of studies. You did this, definitely. But on the other hand, the car developed a lot of tracts which internationally, but also in the Western culture, which claim interpretation, but you have to, in my experience, to expand mobility history into cultural history, into politics.
Yeah, sure.
How cars are tamed in special cultures, how they are re-adventured in different cultures. So what we learned in the study of history in the 1970s, that you had to do diachronic research, historic research, and synchronic research, looking at different contextualization systems for the car, which is in the center.
Yeah.
I think we applied this, and if you put this system of historical analysis and contextual analysis into a perspective of global history, then it's very interesting. I went another way.
Yeah.
I went away into trying to explain tracts of mobility history which baffled me.
Yeah.
I got astonished by several tracts, by several little pieces of transport history, and I tried to expand this into a sort of very sharp-eyed analysis into smallish subjects.
Yes.
Which sometimes had to do nothing with mobility history at all.
Yeah, and for me, through studying world mobility, my main conclusion is in fact that it is wrong to look at that mobility from the car perspective.
Yeah.
Whereas we have learned to analyze Western mobility as car driven, in the non-West it is unofficial traffic, you know,
It's foot travel.
officious economy, rickshaws, bicycles, motorcycles, and the car is, especially in the beginning of motorization, not at all dominant.
Not at all.
And it is the other forms of mobility that define how you should look at its history.
Right. So one of the deficits of our field is to look, for example, at these other types of individual mobility.
Indeed, yeah.
We talked today about 50cc motorcycles, light motorcycles, which are the typical transport machines of the, for example, Jakarta or Delhi.
Indeed.
So, and we have some research into two-wheelers, but this is a research into the racing two-wheelers.
Yes.
But these very unattractive, mundane, simple traffic machines are not analyzed at all, and
No.
we try to avoid to look at them.
Yeah, and it's the local elite that is against them mostly, against the rickshaws, against in Vietnam, the Communist Party leaders were against the motorcycle because it was too dangerous, they claimed, and it was not modern.
Yeah.
And they wanted to automobilize the country.
Yeah.
So it's very funny that you have
Yeah.
a kind of contradiction between people who are in favor of the car and people who are in favor of other modes,
Quite.
and which are mostly people who are related to the poor of the country. So I think when dealing with non-Western mobility, class becomes very important. Class differences and poverty.
This is true for the whole of
course,
mobility history.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, non-European mobility is not prepared often to invest in a lot of structural things, like laying rails, overhead power lines. This is heavy investment into infrastructure, which is simply not financeable.
Yes.
So you have the style of do a lot with the infrastructure, what Karlsruhe did, for example, in adopting broad railway gauge and electrify everything. And this is the type of let it run and let the mobility systems be individualized in the East, for example.
Yes.
This is a very different approach to that.
Yes.
And I have the impression that towns in cities in Germany are now trying to shift the balance towards infrastructural investment and trying to blend out individual traffic, especially, of course, motorized traffic. Is that a way probably for non-Western mobility as well? Is that a common path, or what would we say? I have my doubts with that.
And we did not discuss bicycles up to now because that's also important as a kind of alternative to cars, especially in an urban setting.
Yeah.
But that's maybe for another day.
Okay, should we stop here?
We can stop here. Yeah, if you want to go on, we can go on.
I don't have any topics anymore.
Yeah, I would have some topics, but on the as a Fahrräder, bicycles. Is,
Anything on public transport?
we talked a little bit about public, I would prefer to call it infrastructural transport.
Well, I could talk a bit about this semi-public transport in the third world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which, yeah.
I
So
mean,
would
I
you
mean
will-
one of the things I found out in, for instance, in what was it, Kenya or Nigeria, is this enormous proliferation of these minibuses
Yeah. Mhm.
and the pickup trucks
Yeah.
or the trucks that are converted into buses like
Yeah.
mummy wagons. I
Yeah.
don't know whether you
Yeah.
know
Uh-huh.
the term.
Yeah.
And,
and
so
and the
it is a
interesting
kind of semi-public collective
Yeah.
uh, transport.
And what I saw in India, it does not only transport people, but it transport goods as well.
Yes.
A lot of people brought unbelievable masses of sacks and packages with them, which overpowered the people in these semi-transports.
Indeed, yeah.
And the interesting thing is that this type of transport is not organized at all. It's a sort of slightly regulated. In some eastern towns you have, for example, stickers. You had to get these things licensed, but mostly they are not licensed at all.
Some countries accepted it more or less because they couldn't. But for instance, the World Bank and IMF, as a kind of instruments of Western imperialistic mobility, try to suppress all these forms of semi-official transport without any success. Because, why is that? Because these forms of transport are the lifeblood of poor people. Often migrants from the countryside. They come into a city and the only way they can survive is by becoming a transporter. Hiring a rickshaw or buy
for a lot of money, of
a
course.
minibus or something like that.
But this is very typical. The idea to regulate traffic is as old as traffic, and the agents of regulating, I think we didn't identify this properly. We have to think about agents like the World Bank, for example, but also city authorities. Where get they their ideas from? There are Western Berater, for example, who try to impose their own ideas on traffic. But you have, I think, a strong anarchistic element in mobility. Which defies any kind of regulation.
I agree.
And this, I think, this balance between regulation and an anarchistic approach is a ground subject of our.
I have this double relationship with the World Bank. I think, and I've described, I mean, many dozens of pages about their doings in the non-West, which is really imperialism, road building imperialism. But at the same time, I'm very grateful because they have the best reports on traffic all over the world.
As sources.
I mean, they are a gold mine for an historian.
They analyze anarchy. In order to impose.
And at the same time, they superpose this Western ideology upon non-Western traffic, like the car, the priority of the car, priority of road building over railways. It's changing now, but in the beginning, the first 30 or 40, 50 years, it was all roads, and cars. And they were supported by local elites, the local bourgeoisie. They were, of course, in favor, often educated in the West. And it was a kind of bulwark against all the other forms of transport, like inofficial transport and poor people's transport.
Okay, danke schön.